Hello again, sexplorers. Welcome back to episode 5 of Sexplorations with me, your host, AdelinaAdler. So last episode, we did go into characteristics of a healthy relationship, and I know I said next episode, we would take a look at toxic characteristics. Sometimes things change. We did a little switcheroo. Turns out I did look up Campbell's list, to stay on brand, on their characteristics of an unhealthy romantic relationships. And I found that the language, it focused on abuse mostly and didn't quite explore any other characteristics beyond that. And, there was things you'd expect to see, like the use of intimidation, coercion, threats, destruction of property, emotional abuse, possessiveness, jealousy, isolation, economic abuse, verbal and physical abuse, etc. The list went on. The language I also noticed is bias. It framed abusers as exclusively male and victims of abuse as exclusively female. I can't tell you how damaging that is, as someone who grew up with a very abusive mother and who has had many male friends who have endured horrific abuse in relationships by women. I can tell you that it's not good to have that schema in our head. Isn't that interesting? There's a schema right there. Abuse has no gender limitations. Anyone can be abusive. Anyone can be abused. Also, I didn't feel like triggering a lot of us. And I also felt that maybe it would be good to kind of reel the topic back in to the overarching theme of this series portion, which was shame and worthiness. So for now, we can safely say that the behaviors that oppose last week's list are pretty fair red flags. But if you really want me to get back into that, go ahead, send me an email and request it. Again, right off the top of the episode, that email is askAddieAdler@gmail.com. Ask Addie Adler @gmail.com. So for today, we're going to recap some lessons so far. So far, we've learned about shame, how it's attached to schemas, the ideas about how things should be. We've asserted that these schemas are a product of their environment and change over time and place. This is something we're going to particularly see as we get into the segments on sex and culture in our history. I am so excited for those, I can't even tell you. We've taken a look at some norms when it comes to our ideas on romantic and sexual relationships, and then examined what constitutes the foundations of a healthy relationship. So, on a base level, we've taken something that we all recognize being a relationship, and we've looked at the schema. Then we agreed on some good standards for healthy relationships overall, and now we're going to become exposed to some different relationship models. Why? Well, because this is an exercise in breaking down our biases. See, what I'm hoping to do is that as you get exposed to these different models, I hope you'll find that while perhaps they're different than what you're used to, these models can also harbor those healthy qualities which we've described before. I'm hoping that we'll see that these are all valid ways to approach love and sex, and hopefully understand that different models and lifestyles shouldn't be dismissed or thought of as lesser just because they're different from what we've been conditioned to believe is the only way. And I mean, even just doing research for these episodes, I found language that really did try to frame things that way. It is prevalent. These thoughts, these ideas are prevalent. And I want us to, again, come to realize that this isn't the only way. These aren't the gold standards. And I want us to understand that it's not just okay for other people, that tolerant kind of point of view, but for you as well. And for the people you love. It's okay for all of us. Love, intimacy, devotion. These things don't come in just one expression. I want to set you free from expectation. I want you to learn these different lifestyles and be able to freely consider what model and what lifestyle, honestly, works best for you. And for you to be empowered enough to communicate these needs and preferences to those around you. I want you to maybe have an aha moment and see yourself in some of these examples that you're going to be exposed to. Sometimes all it takes is just a little exposure. I know how relieving it must feel for people who have had these desires or these thoughts, who have maybe sat alone and watched themselves, considered themselves juxtaposed against the others, and thought, man, I think I fit in. This seems a little strange or odd comparison. What if there's no others like me? It's, you know what it is? It's the tale of the ugly frickin' duckling. He's looking at all these other ducklings, and that little guy there like, man, why am I so gross? And then they find out, oh, I'm a swan. And all it takes is seeing a swan for the first time to understand that that's even a thing. Who knew that children's fairy tale be so relevant still? And I know, babe, change is scary. It's terrifying, but it can also be a beautiful and liberating thing once you've stepped past that fear, once you've taken that initial leap. I usually like comparing it to bungee jumping. I had the opportunity to bungee jump off of the third highest point outdoors in like nature in the world. I'm pretty sure it was at least top 5 at the time. It was somewhere on the outskirts of Nepal. I sound so bougie saying that. Back when I was on the outskirts of Nepal one day. But I remember it was such an interesting experience because so this bridge was metal and it had these little links on it. And you can look down, and it was over this cavern, this huge, not cavern, but what is that? Basically a canyon with rushing water beneath, and far off in the distance you could see basically into nothing but forestry as far as the eyes can see. And I can't swim, so I'm looking at the rushing water and going, well, if the fall doesn't kill me, I'm just gonna gurgle myself to death, I guess. And the platform was not even like a foot by a foot. It was basically 1 foot by 1 foot, and they shackled your little feetsies up in these fluffy little ankle guards, and you waddled all the way onto this little tiny platform. Now, mind you, there are no rails on the platform. On the rest of the bridge, yes, there was rail, but there's no rails on this little tiny platform, and you are up there with the wind and the rushing water below and the foresty mountainscape in the distance beautiful, yes, I know. But when you're attached to some little string thing, a bungee, it's daunting. It's super daunting. So I remember I figured it would be like ripping off a Band-Aid. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I shouted out my bravery cry at the time, which I was watching a lot of Doctor Who. So it ended up being like, Allons-y! Which in French is, let's go. And I launched off of it like Ezio. I was very Assassin's Creed. Arms out, beautifully done, swan dive. When I looked at the video later, it looked more like a tiny meek hop. But I remember there was so much fear, so much apprehension building up before that moment of jump. And as soon as I did leap, the next initial response was your chemicals firing in your brain going, oh my goodness, what the heck did you just do? And panic set in. But then I was awash with just bliss, peace, adrenaline. There was nothing but the resignation to the moment and the freedom of the fall. And then, boing. Oh yeah, I bounced back up to do a little mini part 2. And I was so exhilarated, so happy, so free. And yeah, that's chemicals and stuff. But the model works there. It's very similar. That change and confronting it can feel like standing on that ledge and initially breaching these comfort zones or these stagnation places, these places that shame has kept us in, can feel incredibly alarming. You're going to get pushback. You are going to get pushback. Some of you might not, but for many of us, there will be an initial abrasive reaction. But darling, I'm here to tell you that after that, you'll feel the bliss of the fall, and you will be caught, and you will be safe, and you'll be teleported by your own bamboo stick of community into safe terrain. In case you couldn't tell, they fished me over with a bamboo stick. Oh, anyway. Another good thing about it is by normalizing these conversations, we bring these lifestyles and these philosophies and these experiences to light, and that allows for community to happen, sex positive, sexplorer communities to happen. And of course, community visibility and affirmation can help destigmatize and demystify these lifestyles that have been misbranded during their obscurity. I mean, think about it. Sometimes people are interested but don't know where to find information. Communities and visibility create environments where education can happen. Not just conjecture and sloppy, ill-informed attempts at representation, but actual, vetted, broad communication at an influx of amount of it. You get a whole bunch. And that's what we want to happen, because for so long, sexuality has been clouded and resigned to that box under our beds, to that underwear drawer, to that corner underneath a bunch of skeletons that we keep in the back of our minds, in the back of our hearts. It's talking about birds and bees instead of vulvas and penises. It's all of this coded dancing around the issue instead of exploring, instead of confronting, instead of working through. I mean, if you want an example of a lifestyle that used to be shrouded in a lot of mythos and harmful rhetoric, think about the LGBTQ community. I remember during the HIV scare, there was a very prominent belief that it was purely a gay condition and that it was even the result of divine wrath against sodomy and blasphemy. There was so much misinformation and defamation. There was a lot of questions on how can that be done? How can two women have sex with each other? Isn't sex pee-pee goes into VVs like meh? There was fear for people who were LGBTQ in coming out. There was violence, terrible violence at the attempt to reach visibility. Think of Stonewall. Think of my listener who shared their experience. I think of my own experience, where even when it felt like maybe it was okay to be us, there was nowhere that we could go for validation, for affirmation, for information. I often say that I am super grateful for the recent generations and the job and the work they've done in creating this fertile environment for community and for affirmation. I've met several people who have had aversions to C&M lifestyles because they've said that they tried it out, and when they tell me about their experiences, which are largely negative, I find myself realizing and sharing with them that what they experienced wasn't a healthy relationship, and it's not indicative of the C&M community at all. Same goes for BDSM and kink. Same goes for sex work. One of my first projects I ever created was The Naked Booth, and its mission was all about demystifying sex work, particularly stripping, because at the time I worked at a strip club and a gentleman's club, and I worked nearly every position save for bouncing. And I couldn't believe all of the lies people believe about exotic dancers and what goes on in a lot of these clubs. I couldn't believe the stigmatization within the clubs against full-service sex work and things like that, the ideas that were held. Legality aside, the philosophies were hypocritically contrary. Heck, even I held them myself for a time. It was through exposure, through community, through communication, that these things are able to be dismantled. These stigmas, this shame, they're able to be dismantled. Brene Brown, the author of the book Men, Women, and Worthiness, which is the literary work that we're going to be referencing, or that we've been referencing, that I've been referencing in the background for this. She was the first to pen down the concept of shame resilience theory, or SRT. And part of the way she suggests we cultivate shame resilience is by, she's got 3 steps. The first one is recognizing personal vulnerabilities that lead to feelings of shame. And the second one is identifying external factors that also lead to feelings of shame. In the episodes prior to this, I invited you to explore, I think in the very first episode, I invited you to explore personal vulnerabilities, your shame stories, the times that you felt like you had shame, the areas in your life where you feel shame. And remember, shame is that idea that convinces you that you can't be anything more than the flawed thing or the flawed concept of what you believe yourself to be. It doesn't allow forward momentum. It is not constructive at all, unlike guilt, which can be constructive. Then we've been identifying external factors by exploring schemas and norms and using relationships kind of as the roadmap or the object example to do that. Hopefully, those have led you to identify external factors, these norms that lead to feelings of shame when you don't fit them. And finally, her last step is connecting with others to receive and offer empathy. And listen, see, discussing and deconstructing feelings of shame within communities. And again, here we go. This is why Sexplorations exists. My mission with this project, and with almost any project that I have done or will continue to do from here on out, is to stimulate these discussions and amplify these sex positive message alongside other voices of sexual empowerment that are beginning to gain steam in our society. The conversations I'm seeing, the seed is beginning to sprout. It is the time. Now is the time to create this environment of resilience, to create a future for sexual health and sexually healthy ideas. The time is ripe. So, why have we been focusing on romantic relationships? While sex can happen within or without a relationship, or with or without feelings and attachments assigned to it, romantic relationships and sexual ones both deal with our capacities to relate to one another. Human relations, as teacher Annie Easton Baker put it in that mini doc, Sex Ed or Sext, that I shared on the Sexplorations Facebook page. If you haven't seen it, I invite you to look it up. It is on YouTube and it is called Sex Ed. It's SEX and then ed in parentheses. So, it's clever that way. So, capital SEX, parentheses, capital ED, close parentheses. Look it up, and it's a short mini doc. It's about 20 minutes, and it's fascinating. It is exactly the reason why these things need to start happening, why channels like this need to begin to gain steam. Whether I become like super famous with this or not, it just needs to happen. I need to add my voice to amplify, to make the chorus happen. It's like ripples. But yes, definitely look that up. But moreover, for a large portion of the populace, sexual relationships and romantic relationships have been interlinked and conflated. I mean, it may be conflated for you. I figured it was a good place to start because of that relation. And if it is conflated for you, if those two kind of seem like one and the same, hopefully in time, that may change for some of you. You can come to choose what role you assign to your sex instead of defaulting to an attachment based on, because that's what you've heard it should be or thought it should be for most of your life. You may come to understand where that need to connect sex with love or self-value or any other attachment every time stems from, and then decide if you'd like to keep that connection for yourself. Either way, the goal is to empower you with the introspective tools to make informed decisions that aren't dictated by fear, unhealthy attachments, or shame. When you look at why you believe or why you behave when it comes to sex or your romantic relationships in the ways you do you find that a lot of what drives you is fear? Because even shame is based off of fear. It comes from a place of fear. Our attachment, when they grow unhealthy, that's usually driven by fear too. Think about it. It is my hope that by deconstructing, schemas with relationships, we can translate this into deconstructing schemas with sex. And hopefully from that, everything else in your life. An article on deconstructing shame on Psychology Today that I found made the remark that if you're looking for evidence that you aren't enough, you'll find it. It's called a confirmation bias. Well, what I want to do is flood you with evidence that you are not alone, no matter where you are on your sexual journey, no matter where you are. you're enough and that there is a place for you. Your people are out here, guaranteed. Do y'all remember something called Rule 34 from the now toxicified 4chan back in the day before it mutated into the homunculus it is now? It used to be kind of a fun place-ish. But Rule 34 was, if you could conceptualize a porno, an idea for a porno, guaranteed it already exists somewhere. All you gotta do is look. And trust me and my young friends, we went crazy testing this theory out. We searched. I think there was only one type that I have yet to find. And even then, I've got people digging. But what the point of that is to let you know, oh honey, yes, there's a flavor for you. And I know, again, here we go. I'm not trying to conflate pornography with reality. We know that is an entertainment industry. Okay? But what I'm trying to say here in a little bit of a silly way is that very much like that, there are people out there. There is a community for you. Because again, we do need to belong. Humans are gregarious creatures. No matter how alone and badass and edgelord you want to be. We are gregarious creatures and we seek to belong. And we seek to feel loved. And we seek to feel okay. We need that intimacy. We need that gateway to intimacy, guys. We need to feel secure. We need to feel all of those things from my little Maslow tree that I made. I guess it'd be the Adler tree. Oh, nice. So I'm going to show you evidence that you're not alone and that you're enough. I'm going to show you representation. So when you say, I am enough, when you say, this is what I like, you can say it confidently, you can say it boldly, and in certainty that you are not defective, unworthy, and don't belong, and without fear of being rejected. Because you know what? Even when it comes at you, you know that ain't the end. You know there's going to be plenty more experiences on your way, because it's never the end. So what's next? Addie, what does this mean moving forward? So at first, I was following a more linear structure with my episode themes, but I mean, there's just so much I want to get to. So much I'm sure you want me to get to. So it's time. It's time. It's time to get to the part where we sexplore. That's right. So there will be talks about alternative relationship styles. I think the next one I'm going to explore is going to be one of those. I got to start off just to round off and kind of tie up the whole relationships topic. But from there, listen, I'm going to jump to questions and answers to common sexual myths, history and cultural lessons, like I keep saying, about our country and all over the world. I had a great conversation with one of my patrons and donors from Germany about how sex is viewed culturally there. Maybe I'll see about asking her to join in and do interviews. I mean, I want to have interviews with friends and hopefully experts. And I want to give you instructions on how to dissect your fantasies, to find the running themes in them, and then like incorporate those into other sex plays. Like, oh, there's so much. I want to do reviews on sex toys, on pleasure devices. I want to answer your questions too. So basically, I'm going to throw interesting topics at you. Ask me questions about them. Ask me questions of your own that you already have. I mean, are you having difficulty facing a personal shame hurdle, or do you need information on where to find information on something sexy you want to explore? Make me your hub. Reach on out to me, AdelinaAdler, and I will be here to help you every step of the way, buddy. That reminds me, actually. I know some of you who know me personally have already reached out to me on my messenger or through text. And I would like to ask that please, all sex and intimacy inquiries, please send those to my email, askAddieAdler@gmail.com. or through a private message on Patreon, because those are the two spaces where your messages won't get lost in a sea of other messages. I am inundated usually with messages from my little civvy job, from other things, and usually I don't want that to happen, to get lost. I also suffer with severe depressive disorders and things like that kind of affect your memory. So if I haven't gotten back to you or followed up, this is why, darlings. I hope you understand. Thank you for understanding. I know you will. So please try reaching back out via email. Even if I've already kind of talked to you, reach back out via email with a brief kind of synopsis of like what you're dealing with, what you need help with, what you'd like help with. And we'll set things up to talk, and I promise things will run more smoothly from there. It helps for me and here we are, here I am communicating my needs to you. It helps for me if I can have separate spaces for different responsibilities and different communications. That works well for me. So, all right, once again, sexploration. Oh, if you want to contact me, it's AskAddieAdler at gmail.com, AskAddyeAdler@gmail.com. Or if you'd like, message me, send me a message on Patreon. If you haven't yet, I do have a Patreon. If this mission sounds important to you, if you're here with me on this goal, please, your support means the world to me. I've decided that once I reach 1,500, I'm going to go ahead and register for the Somatica courses. I am already 500 in, guys. Thank you so much. It's just been a month. It's only been 5 episodes. This feels like $100 per episode if I think of it that way, and that's super exciting. Please. So that's my goal. My goal is 1,500. We like goals. Goals are cool. Goals are achievable. Once that hits, I'm doing it, guys. I'm gonna start the classes. They're online and they're on the weekends, so it won't interrupt this, and I will share all that information with you. So the more I learn, I will be the amplifier of all this information to you. So the more I learn, the more you learn. Let's work together, baby. Symbiosis. Yes. So together we're gonna bust through those barriers. Ooh, I probably busted the microphone right there. Together we're gonna bust through those barriers and boldly go forth into tomorrow as brave, horny, or asexual sexplorers, unafraid and bristling with the brilliance of knowledge. Thank you so much to my patrons so far for supporting me, for showing me love, and for participating on the little prompts that I try to put up there on Patreon. Guys, it's I'm bad at social media. I'm 33 years old and I'm getting shitty at it. So thank you for putting up with my lackluster engagement things there. It's gonna get better. Also let me know, guys, because I do want to honor that Tuesday stream thing. I know there's only a few of you right now, but since there's only a few of you for now, if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one little session, that's what we'll do then. We can schedule a one-on-one free little session. Well, I guess it's not free because you already paid for Patreon, and that'll kind of equal out. And then once more patrons come in and start flooding, we can settle on a time schedule or a Q&A on Tuesdays. Send me your questions anyway, patrons, and I will record those answers ahead of time and then post it up for you. We can do it that way too. Yes. Let me know what works for you. This is an open dialogue between us lovers. Thank you to my patrons, Devin Tyler, Chris Elliott, R.D. Hannah, and Emily Sievert. Thank you for coming in and telling me how to pronounce that. Thank you to my one-time donors, Natty Sunshine. And thank you for getting me another donor out there in Germany, Natty. Thanks to that person. I will learn how to say thank you in German soon. The first thing that came to me was Italian. So, and thank you, Papa Bruce. Thank you, Papa Bruce, as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining me. I hope you're as excited as I am for what's coming up next. Tell me what you'd like to see. Tell me how I can help you. We're in this together. Take care of yourselves. Do something sexy for yourself tonight. And I'll see you next time, guys. Love you.